And welcome to Cisca Stitches. In today's video, I'm going to be showing us how to make this simple jersey slip dress or spaghetti dress. It's a project that you can actually finish in less than 3 hours. So I'll be showing us how to make this as quick as possible. So because this dress is going to have straps, what I did was to remove 3.5 from my measurement. So the straps, so the main dress is going to start from 3.5 inches. Above that, we are going to have our straps. Okay, so you can actually make yours a bit lower. I'm actually making mine that I can wear with a jacket on top of it and go to the office. So if you want to make your straps longer, you can come up to 5 inches. So let me just work with 5 inches. So I mark 5 inches here. I'm going to come right here, mark 5 inches, making sure I place 3.5 on this line. Okay, I mark 5 inches. So this is 5 inches. I have marked 5 inches, and then I'm going to join it to have a straight line. So this is the line that we are working with now. The next thing we're going to do is to mark my shoulder measurement, and my shoulder measurement is 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'm going to come right here, mark 8 inches. Then I'll mark 2 inches from that 8 inches, and that is where we are going to create our neckline. So I'm going to be going with a neckline of about 1 inch from this line. It's not your shoulder line anyways, it's just, let's put it, your upper chest line. If I mentioned shoulder line earlier, please replace that with upper chest line. So I'm just going to come 1 inch below, and then I'm going to connect it to this point here. Okay, so just like this. So guys, after we marked our upper chest line, what I did was to mark my armhole divided by 2. My armhole is 18 divided by 2. You can see I have 9 inches here. I've drawn a line across. I've drawn a line across this point. This is 17 inches. That is my waist. The next part is 25 inches. That is my hip right here. And then I have the bottom of the dress, okay, which is around 44 inches plus seam allowance. Now what I'm going to do right now is to come to this armhole line divided by 2. Remember that we marked our shoulder to be 8 inches. I'm going to come right there, mark 8 inches. We're going to draw a straight line across, joining those 2 points. Then I'm going to come right here. What I'm going to do is to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust is 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. Okay, I'm going to create a curve connecting the bust circumference divided by 4 to this point here. Okay, so just like this, I'm going to connect it like that. Okay, so we have drafted our armhole, we have drafted our neckline. The next thing that I'm going to do is to come right here and mark my waist circumference divided by 4. My waist circumference is 33 divided by 4 is 8.25. So I'm going to come right here and mark 8.25. By the way, I am cutting the front and the back at the same time. So my fabric is folded into 4. We have 2 folds here just to make things easy for me. Then I'm going to come to my hip, mark my hip circumference divided by 4. My hip is 43 divided by 4 is 10.75. Then I'll remove 1.5 inches from 10.75. Okay, so let's just do it like this. I should be left with 9.25, and that is what I'm going to be marking at the bottom of our dress. Around the knee area, that is going to be 9.25. okay, so what I'm going to do is to connect that knee to the hip, connect the hip to the waist, connect the waist to the bust. So guys, after connecting, the next thing that we are going to do is to straighten out the waist and the hip. So I'm just going to come right here, use my French curve so we don't have any sharp points. I'm going to come to my hip and I'm going to straighten it out as well. Okay, very, very simple. And what we are going to do is to cut this out. Now, because this fabric is very, very stretchy, what I'm going to do is to just cut everything out without adding seam allowance. Okay, by the time I'm joining everything together, I am going to be sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that is actually not a lot. So I'll just cut everything as is without having seam allowance. The stretch of the fabric will accommodate for the seam allowance that I am not adding. So I'll cut my neckline, cut the armhole, cut the side seam all the way down, and then I'm going to move to the next part. After cutting, this is what we have. What I'm going to do next is to go on to sew the side seam of this dress by a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So after sewing the side seam, I tried the dress on and I realized that the neck line was a bit too wide. So what I'm going to do is to just take out 1 inch from the edge on both sides. Okay, so that will help to bring the neckline closer so that we don't have our strap still moving towards the end of the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is to come right here and mark 1 inch. Okay, connect it to the armhole. So first of all, I'm just going to cut one side and use the scrap to cut the second side. That way both of them are uniform. I'm just going to place it like this. Can you see? And then I'll go on to cut this part out. So after adjusting our neckline, the next thing I'm going to do is to conceal the raw edge of this neckline. And rather than hem, I'm going to use a strip of fabric to cover it up. I don't want to hem because that will further bring down my neckline. Now you can only hem if you have your neckline as straight, okay, as I have here. It is not too curved, so I can hem this. But if your neckline is very curved, please go ahead and use a bias tape to conceal your raw edge. Now because this part is, not too curved, I just cut a strip of fabric and I'm going to use that to sew the neckline. I place the right side of the strip of fabric on the right side of the dress. I'm going to sew by a 1/4 inch. Strip of fabric that we have sewn onto the neckline is actually measuring 1 inch. So I sewed by a 1/4 inch, and what I'm going to do is to flip the piece of fabric over like this. I fold the edge here by a 1/4 inch and then I'm going to sew all the way down. So after sewing the neckline, this is what we have. Now what we are going to do next is to measure what we have at the armhole. So I have from the edge of the neckline, okay, so I have around 5.75 inches here. Now we're going to add this 5.75 inches to the 5 inch that we cut off from the pattern. Remember that when I started drafting, I placed the 5 inch, as my upper chest measurement. So I'm going to add that 5 inch to this armhole that we have here, which is 5.75. So if we add that, that will give us 10.75, and that is going to be the length of the fabric that we are going to use to conceal the armhole and create our straps. So since I've calculated that to be 10.75, we're going to fold our strip of fabric into two. Now the width of this is 1.5 inches, okay, thereabouts, and I'm going to measure that 10.75 inches plus an extra 1/2 inch. That will make it 11.25 inches. So I'm going to come right here and mark 11.25. We can't see it because I've turned the fabric right sides facing me. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 11.25 out of this. Okay, so we'll need to cut two of this because of course we need strap for the other parts of this dress. So I'm going to go on to cut the second one. Now what I'm going to do next is to take this piece to my sewing machine. I'm going to fold it together like this and then sew by a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the two of them. After sewing by a 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm going to place the right side of this touching the right side of the armhole of the dress, and I made sure to match the seam around that place. So what we're going to do right now is to take this to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew by a 1/4 inch up until where the armhole ends, So sew it by 1/4 inch straight up here, sew it by 1/4 inch from here all the way to the end here. After sewing this onto the armhole, we have our straps on already. So all we need to do is to fold this over. We're going to fold the edge by 1/4 inch. Okay, and then we're going to sew this all around. So when I get to this part that is not connected to the armhole, I just fold it 1/4 inch under here, fold it over this edge, fold it by 1/4 inch, and just stitch it all around. And then once I'm done with that, I'll just go on to hem the bottom of the dress. I'll do a rolled hem, stitch it, and our dress is done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, kindly give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell so you get updates when I post new videos, and I'm going to be seeing you guys in my next tutorial. Bye.